What if the bitter fight for a child pushes someone so far past their psychological breaking point that there is absolutely no coming back? We have all been watching Brooke Lynn crumble under the massive weight of her hidden secrets regarding that terrible, fateful night on the dark road. With Chase rapidly closing in on an official arrest and the harsh reality of a lengthy prison sentence looming, her entire world is violently collapsing. The legal adoption of little Phoebe is on the verge of total destruction, threatening to rip the precious child right out of her loving arms forever. Facing the terrifying prospect of losing both her physical freedom and her beloved baby, Brooke Lynn is about to make a truly desperate and dangerous choice. She paces her dimly lit bedroom for hours on end, staring blankly at the empty suitcases scattered across the floor while listening to the soft, innocent breathing of the sleeping child. Every single time she closes her eyes, she sees the flashing red and blue lights of police cruisers coming to take her away from her family forever. The massive walls of the opulent mansion feel like a suffocating prison, crushing her with the constant, agonizing reminder of the terrible mistake she made that night. She simply cannot bear the heartbreaking thought of Phoebe growing up without a devoted mother, wondering why she was cruelly abandoned all over again by the universe. Guys, I truly believe Brooke Lynn is going to do the unthinkable and run away with Phoebe in the dead of the freezing night. Driven by sheer, unadulterated panic, she completely convinces herself that she is the absolute only person on Earth who can protect this fragile baby's future. She ignores all rational logic, frantically packs a single heavy bag in the dark, and vanishes from Port Charles without leaving a single trace behind for anyone to find. Can you imagine the sheer, paralyzing terror running through her freezing veins as she speeds out of town with a sleeping infant secured in the back seat? Her deep maternal instincts have completely overridden her rational mind, making her falsely believe that fleeing the state is her only viable option for long-term survival. She knows deep down that if she stays in town, Chase will inevitably slap cold metal handcuffs on her wrists and lock her in a miserable jail cell. But the story does not just stop there, because Ethan is absolutely not going to sit back and let his beautiful daughter disappear into the night. As Phoebe's biological father, his fiercely protective paternal instincts will kick into high gear the exact second he realizes what Brooke Lynn has recklessly done. He will immediately track her down, fueled by a highly dangerous mixture of blinding, explosive anger, and absolute heart-stopping panic over his missing child. This is no longer just about a frustrating legal custody battle in a sterile courtroom. This is a full-blown, desperate hunt for his own precious flesh and blood. Ethan has already lost so much in his turbulent life, and he flatly refuses to let another wealthy family member dictate the terms of his personal happiness. He uses every single shady resource at his disposal to meticulously trace Brooke Lynn's frantic, messy escape route out of the city limits. He remembers every single dirty trick he learned over the years, tapping into his darkest survival instincts to hunt down his vulnerable, missing child. He obsessively checks security cameras, bribes local waterfront informants, and pieces together the frantic trail of breadcrumbs that Brooke Lynn accidentally left in her terrified wake. His heart pounds violently against his ribs with a ferocious rhythm, entirely consumed by the paralyzing fear that he might never actually see Phoebe's smiling face again. This is a desperate man who has been pushed to the absolute edge of his sanity, and he is fully willing to do whatever it takes to win this war. I can clearly see this relentless pursuit leading to a massive, cinematic showdown at a remote, heavily foggy dock hidden far away from any prying eyes. Brooke Lynn is desperately trying to secure a fast getaway boat or a discreet way out when Ethan suddenly steps out of the freezing, misty shadows. The tense confrontation instantly escalates into a vicious, ear-piercing screaming match, echoing loudly over the crashing, violent waves of the dark, unforgiving water. Both of them fiercely believe they are the only rightful, loving parent capable of providing a truly safe and stable life for little Phoebe. The heavy tension is so incredibly thick you could easily cut it with a knife as the freezing cold wind howls violently around their shivering bodies. Brooke Lynn is tightly clutching the crying baby to her chest, her wide eyes wild with the terrifying realization that she has finally been caught in her lie. Words are simply not going to be enough to peacefully settle this bitter, deeply personal dispute over the innocent little girl standing between them. A violent, chaotic physical struggle abruptly breaks out as Ethan aggressively reaches forward, trying to forcefully pull Phoebe away from a completely hysterical Brooke Lynn. In the frantic, terrifying tug of war, Brooke Lynn suddenly loses her footing on the slippery, rain-slicked wooden planks of the old, rotting pier. She falls violently backward, hitting the unforgiving solid ground with a sickening thud, and sustains a very serious, potentially life-threatening head injury. This is exactly where we see an unexpected turn that will leave us all completely speechless and screaming loudly at our television screens. Ethan stares down at the bleeding, incapacitated Brooklyn and slowly realizes exactly how this horrifying, bloody situation looks to an outside observer. If he immediately calls for a screaming ambulance, the local police will automatically assume he violently attacked her in cold blood to steal the baby back by force. Blind panic sets in, and Ethan makes the chilling, desperate decision to permanently silence Brooklyn in order to selfishly protect his own freedom and custody rights. Instead of calling for medical help, what if there is a hidden agenda driving Ethan to hide her broken body or lock her away in a secret location? He frantically drags her unconscious form into an abandoned, filthy boathouse, leaving her completely in the dark while he desperately figures out his next calculated move. He watches her chest rise and fall with shallow, uneven breaths, his racing mind cycling through a million terrifying scenarios of what comes next for him. If she miraculously wakes up and points the accusing finger at him, his entire life will be totally over before he even gets a real chance to be a father. The dark, twisted logic of pure self-preservation completely takes over his panicked brain, whispering that he has to do whatever is strictly necessary to survive this nightmare. He carefully wipes away his bloody fingerprints from the chaotic scene, ensuring that absolutely nothing ties him back to the violent struggle on the wet, slippery wood. He knows with absolute certainty that if he returns to Port Charles with Phoebe while Brooklyn is still missing, he instantly becomes public enemy number one. Chase and the entire powerful, wealthy family will immediately point their accusing fingers directly at him without a single second thought or hesitation. Ethan is suddenly trapped in a terrifying, suffocating nightmare of his own making, tightly clutching his crying daughter in the freezing, unforgiving cold. Standing alone on that desolate dock, Ethan faces an impossible, life-altering choice that will permanently define his entire future and completely shatter his moral compass. He could secretly hand Phoebe over to a highly trusted ally in the dead of night, allowing him to return to town alone and quietly clear his ruined name. Or he could selfishly abandon his life in Port Charles entirely, taking his beautiful daughter on the run as a permanent, hunted fugitive hiding from the law. Either way, the peaceful life he once knew is completely destroyed forever, and he is actively crossing a dark, sinister line he can never possibly uncross. This potential betrayal of everything Ethan used to proudly stand for is going to be the absolute most gripping, emotional storyline of the entire summer season. Meanwhile, back in the bustling city of Port Charles, Brooklyn's sudden, unexplained disappearance is going to send massive, destructive shockwaves through the entire town. Chase is going to aggressively tear the city apart looking for the woman he deeply loves, completely unaware of the bloody, tragic showdown at the docks. Imagine a heartbroken Chase walking slowly into that empty, silent nursery, finding a drop pacifier on the floor, and feeling his soul shatter into a million jagged pieces. The horrifying realization that she has fled the state with the baby will ignite a desperate, frantic manhunt heavily spearheaded by the entire local police department. He will relentlessly organize massive search parties, aggressively interrogate every single person who spoke to her that fateful day, and absolutely refuse to sleep until she is found. His sharp, highly trained detective skills will immediately notice the glaring inconsistencies in her sudden departure, leading him straight down a very dark, dangerous rabbit hole. He will slowly start putting the complicated pieces together, realizing with dread that Ethan was the absolute only person with a strong enough motive to violently follow her. The impending, inevitable clash between a furious Chase and a desperate Ethan is going to be incredibly explosive, filled with raw emotion and highly dangerous accusations. The opulent mansion will be turned completely upside down as sheer panic, blinding rage, and profound, suffocating grief consume the entire wealthy family. Tracy will furiously demand immediate answers, using all of her vast fortune and political influence to ruthlessly hunt down anyone who might have secretly helped Brooklyn escape. A massive, highly publicized town-wide investigation will launch, and every single digital footprint or hidden clue will eventually lead right back to Ethan's doorstep. Sonny might even get heavily involved in the search, considering Brooklyn had just desperately reached out to him for help right before she vanished into thin air. Sonny had firmly promised to protect her, and her sudden, violent disappearance will feel like a massive, unforgivable, personal failure on his part. He will quickly unleash his own terrifying network of loyal enforcers to aggressively scour the docks in the criminal underworld, looking for any whisper of her hidden location. When Sonny finally finds out that Ethan might be directly involved in this tragedy, we all know that the ruthless mob boss will not patiently wait for the police to act. He will coldly dispense his own brutal, unforgiving brand of street justice, making Ethan's already precarious situation infinitely more dangerous than it already is. The ultimate haunting question hanging heavily over Port Charles will be whether Brooke Lynn is actually dead or barely clinging to life in some hidden, dark location. Is Ethan a fiercely protective, loving father, or has he truly transformed into a ruthless, cold blooded monster hiding a fatal, unforgivable secret from the world? We are currently looking at a massive, sweeping tragedy that will permanently fracture families, destroy promising careers, and end with devastating, long lasting consequences for everyone involved. The massive ripple effects of this single bloody night at the docks will completely change the dramatic landscape of the show for many years to come. So, what do you guys genuinely think about this unbelievable theory and the massive, heart stopping drama heading our way very soon? Will Ethan actually get away with this dark, twisted cover up, or will a relentless chase uncover the horrifying truth before it is entirely too late?